Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. My name is Aaron and it is the football team of the year, the National Football League team of the year for the 2022 Allianz National Football League. And you know, what a football league campaign we had. I mean, there was so much action, so much drama, so much unexpectedness really happening across all four divisions. You know, when you look at some of the teams that got relegated, some of the teams that got promoted, I mean, there was just so much drama, so much action. And of course, with that came some brilliant performances from a whole host of players across all four divisions. I mean, you think of some of the stories around some of the players as well. Just absolutely brilliant stuff altogether. And as always, you know, as I usually do at the end of every National Football League campaign, we go ahead and we take a look at the best 15 players in the Allianz National Football League for 2022. So let's get straight into it. First of all, if you are new to the channel, if you could smash the like button and subscribe if you're new, it helps the channel grow. The content on the channel is completely free. So if you could subscribe, that would be very much appreciated. And yeah, obviously bear in mind this is my choice, you know, so these are obviously based on what I've seen. I obviously haven't seen every game across the entirety of the country this year. I mean, I'm much in the same bracket as a lot of other GAA fans in terms of not being able to see a lot of games because unfortunately the GAA decided not to show that many Division 4 and Division 3 games. So yeah, look, listen, let's crack into it. Let's crack straight into it and we'll kick things off here with the goalkeeper. And you know, there was a lot of different choices obviously for the goalkeeper. I mean, you'd look at Noel Morgan, you'd look at, you know, maybe Rory Began, who's done alright. I think Robbie Henley's had a good campaign for Mayo when he's played, albeit only in 5 games this year. But the goalkeeper I've gone for is Raymond Galligan, and maybe that might be a little bit of a surprise to some people, but look, I think he's done very well this year. He's kept 5 clean sheets in 8 games, which shows how well he's done for Cavan in Division 4. He's also the highest scoring goalkeeper as well with 15 points, so that's absolutely crucial from his point of view. And I think he's been brilliant for Cavan. You know, you've seen a couple of big saves he made in the Tipperary game. Obviously, you know, as I just said, I haven't seen too much of Cavan this year, but looking at it statistically speaking, I do think Raymond Galligan deserves that position in my opinion. You know, as I said, I think Noel Morgan's been alright for Tyrone. Like, his kickouts have been decent. He's made a couple of big saves here and there. But I do think, you know, you got to get someone from this Cavan team on this team. And I think Raymond Galligan, for me, is the obvious candidate. And I don't think there was probably a clear candidate for the goalkeeper, in my opinion. As I said, I think Rory Began, you know, you think of those mistakes he made against Kerry. A couple of times he was caught. Robbie Henley was very good for Mayo, but he only played 5 games as opposed to Raymond Galligan, who played 8. So, you know, I just think Galligan just about shades it. And the fact is as well, Galligan obviously, as we very well know, brilliant from his kickouts. He gets very good range on them kickouts. And Cavan generally were quite good defensively this year. And I do think Galligan supposedly had a bit of a nightmare against London away. I'm going to put that down to the fact that he was probably out on the points the night before, because that game was at 12 o'clock. And you're in London, you're going out for points. It's completely acceptable. Do you know what I mean? So fair enough. We'll let him away with that one. But, you know, 16 points this year. The highest scoring goalkeeper out of any of the goalkeepers this year. So that shows how accurate he was in front of goal. So Raymond Galligan is my number 1 in goal. We move on to the right cornerback position. There were certainly some positions available for this one. I mean, Lee Keegan, obviously, first of all, was very impressive, I thought, for Mayo throughout the entirety of the year. Brendan Rodgers had a very good campaign for Derry, a Derry side, of course, who finished with the best defence in the country, statistically speaking. But the player I've gone for here is Jason Foley, and I think Kerry, generally speaking, have improved massively defensively, and I think Jason Foley so key for Kerry this year. And obviously you think of that goal he got against Mayo right at the death as well. I mean, I'm not too sure what he was doing so far forward and in that position, but he got on the end of it, got himself a goal for his troubles. And you know, he is very much part of a Kerry team that conceded just 2 goals in 8 games this year, and they conceded an average of 12 points per game. So for Jason Foley and for Kerry, they've been absolutely superb defensively. You can see that Paddy Tally influence that's come into the team. And I think as well with Foley, you know, he's not too bad at getting forward as well, isn't he not? You know, he can get the odd point here and there. He certainly hasn't got as far forward this year as he has in previous years. And I think the main sort of reason for that is because of, I suppose, how more compact Kerry are nowadays with the likes of Tally coming in there, Jack O'Connor obviously as well. So Kerry are looking very good defensively at the minute, and I think Jason Foley in that cornerback position, I think not only does he get in this team of the year, but I think he's a very strong contender in my opinion for an all-star, and he definitely gets in there. And I think, if Kerry are going to have a big year, they're going to need the likes of your Jason Foley's and whatnot to step up in that position. So yeah, Jason Foley in there at cornerback. We move on to the fullback position, and there were certainly some options available here. I know Patrick O'Hara certainly got his fair amount of criticism throughout the entirety of that game versus Kerry, but I do think he largely had an okay campaign, but not quite enough to obviously get into this position. I think Aidan Forker done quite well for Armagh this year, but the player I have gone for is Brian Stack of Roscommon. Now, you look at Roscommon, you look at the brilliant year that they've had, the second best defence in the country statistically speaking, and I think Roscommon have been brilliant defensively this year. And as I said before, they've probably struggled in the past between being way too attacking, leaving themselves way too exposed at the back and being hit on the break and everything else. And obviously last year they were far too defensive and didn't get enough going forward. Whereas this year they've certainly found the balance, and I think Brian Stack has played a big influence in that. He's been part of a Roscommon team that conceded just 2 goals in 8 games and part of the only unbeaten team in the country as well. So that goes to show just how well he has done in that fullback role. And I think Roscommon in general, as I said in the podcast a couple of days ago, and I said in the fan reaction show as well, I think Brian Stack, or not Brian Stack, but I think Roscommon in general could very well be outside dark horses for something special this year. Probably is a bit premature to start saying Roscommon are going to make All-Ireland semi-finals or more, but I think when you look at some of the inconsistencies of Mayo in the league this year, Galway obviously look brilliant going forward, but do have a bit of a shaky defence themselves. Roscommon might just be the most balanced team in Connacht, but in saying that, look, Mayo have obviously played much higher quality opposition than Roscommon this year. If Mayo were in Division 2, I would have fully expected them to probably win that division quite comfortably. So, I would expect Mayo still to come through Connacht, but I think Roscommon, looking at how well they're playing defensively, and obviously Brian Stack in particular, who's been key to that in that fullback role, I think could be very crucial for this Roscommon team. We move into the other cornerback position, and it is Tom O'Sullivan. And look, I think this guy has been absolutely incredible for Kerry this year. He's been incredible the last couple of years as well since coming into the team, and finishes with a point to his troubles as well. But of course, his work defensively has just been absolutely brilliant. And, it's very similar, obviously, to Jason Foley as well. He's part of a very, very good Kerry team at the minute. And it is no surprise to see plenty of Kerry players make it in this team. I mean, again, you could have looked at some of the Derry players who maybe could have snuck in here, potentially, with how well they done this year. But I do think, ultimately, you would have to look at a man of the quality of Tom O'Sullivan, who I think has been absolutely tremendous for Kerry this year. So Tom O'Sullivan gets in at number 4. We move into number 5 and into the wing back position, and it's a tough one in many ways. There's a couple of different players you could obviously throw in here. There's been a lot of very, very good midfielders this year, and that's kind of one of the reasons why you could probably throw a midfielder in this position. But the player I've gone for is Kieran McFell of Derry, and as I was saying before, Derry statistically, even though they did concede 4 goals against Derry in the second last game of the season and conceded 2 goals against Meath on the final day of the season, they did finish as the best defence in the country in terms of statistics of what they actually conceded, and I think Kieran McFell was a big part of that. But Kieran McFell as well has actually played in a whole host of different positions. He's played in midfield, he's played in wing forward, wing back. You can play in the cornerback roles as well. Like, this guy is such a versatile footballer. With his club, Waddy Graham's Glen, he'll play in this position, but with Derry, he's definitely played more of an advanced role this year. Kicked 7 points in total for Derry as well, and it's just that influence in behind the attack as well, in behind the midfield, supporting players, whether it's Lakeland Murray, Shane McGuigan, Conor Glass as well. He's that extra bit of armour in midfield sometimes for this Derry team. So yeah, I think Kieran McFell's been absolutely brilliant. I think he's one of the most underrated footballers in the country, and I think if Derry are going to do anything special this year, are going to do anything big, mark my words, you will hear of him. And another man who loves to venture forward and play almost like a box-to-box role is Ian Corbett of Limerick in at number 6, and he's been exceptional for Limerick this year in their route to promotion to Division 2, and he's been one of the real sort of starlets, or one of the most known sort of figures in this Limerick side over the past couple of years. He's probably the one player that a lot of people would be familiar with. Very tall, strong, physical player. Brilliant at obviously, causing turnovers in that sort of area of the pitch, just above the D. And as well as that, he's obviously brilliant at getting forward and contributing to the attack. 3 points in total this year. And obviously, like a lot of the Division 3 and Division 4 teams, we haven't been blessed with seeing too much of them. But even at times in the Loud game, you could see his influence at getting forward. You could see some of the attacks he was supporting as well. And Limerick finished with 10 goals this year in total. And from reading different match reports and everything else, supposedly he's had a big part in that as well. It's setting up a couple of goals here and there. So I think Ian Corbett gets in there at number 6. Absolutely brilliant for Limerick. And, if Limerick are going to do anything big this year, potentially maybe get into a Munster final, which definitely isn't, inconceivable, I think a player like Ian Corbett, could very much be in the mix. I mean, let's not forget as well, he was nominated for an All-Star actually last year as well. So that just goes to show how good of a player that man is. So, yeah, he gets in at number 6. At number 7, we've gone for Mark Russell of Tipperary. And as I said, there was a whole host of players you could really throw in here, and you're looking at other midfielders, maybe Conor Glass of Derry, Diarmuid O'Connor of Kerry, Diarmuid O'Connor of Mayo maybe arguably could have got in. I think would have favoured Diarmuid O'Connor of Kerry maybe a little bit more so. I think he finished with 3 points in total. Diarmuid O'Connor of Mayo finished with 5 points. So both of them really could have potentially snuck in here as potential options. James McCarthy's looked okay for Dublin at times and looked quite impressive, but I think when you look at the overall sort of campaign of the league, I don't think he gets in here. So I think Mark Russell of Tipperary, and look, we've seen how good of a footballer he is in that game versus Cavan. I mean, 2 of his points from the sideline were absolutely extraordinary, or not at the sideline, but just very close to the sideline, sort of outside of the boot slicers. Very, very top quality player. You look at Tipperary and you look at what they've obviously lost in midfield and some of the players that they've lost, obviously in Colin O'Riordan, who's obviously playing AFL, and you've obviously got Mickey Quinlivan, who obviously plays up in the full forward line, but he's obviously not there as well. So they've needed other players to step up, and Mark Russell has done exactly that. 110 and 5 starts for Mark Russell this year as well for Tipperary, so that shows just the influence that he has had. So Mark Russell gets in at number 7. And moving on to midfield, we have both Matthew Rowan and Paul Conroy, and I don't really think there could be any arguments with these two positions. Matthew Rowan has been brilliant for Mayo this year. For me, he's been Mayo's best player so far this year, alongside Ryan O'Donoghue. You could argue Ryan O'Donoghue maybe just a little bit better, I suppose. He's had a bit more of an impact, but I think Matthew Rowan's been exceptional around midfield, and he has been for the last couple of years at this stage. 8 points in there in total for Matthew Rowan, all of which from play. He's one of Mayo's sort of natural shooters as well. Like, he can kick from distance, from 40 yards or so, 30, 40 yards, which a lot of Mayo players probably can't at the minute with some of their injuries. So I think Matthew Rowan, absolutely exceptional, gets in there. Paul Conroy as well. I mean, what a player this guy is. I mean, he is definitely a contender, in my opinion, for, Footballer of the Year or National League Footballer of the Year, which we will reveal at the end of this video. I do think it's quite obvious to know who it is, but I do think Paul Conroy gets in the conversation. He's been absolutely exceptional. I mean, 115 in total from midfield, all of which from play. I mean, that is absolutely extraordinary. I mean, that's sort of tally you'd see from a forward. And when you think it's all from play as well, just absolutely brilliant. And, he's going to be a real starlet of this Galway team. He's going to be a player that I think a lot of people are going to want to get a hold of. It's going to be very fascinating as well to see that midfield battle between Rowan and Conroy, whether they pick up each other or whether it's, Conor Loftus or something like that. But it's going to be very, very fascinating to see that midfield battle indeed. And I think Paul Conroy, absolutely exceptional for this Galway team this year. We move into the forward line and move into the half-forward line. And look, there have been so many brilliant forwards this year in the Alliance National Football League. You feel bad for some of the players that have been left out here. You're looking at some top scorers, some natural shooters, some brilliant players. But look, you can only fit 6 in. And, you have to kind of look at it and think which players have had the biggest impact, which players have obviously done the best, and obviously which players have we seen the most as well. So look, Enda Smith gets in at number 10 for me. As I said before, Roscommon, excellent defensively, but also very good in terms of attack as well. They actually finished the year with the 4th best attack in terms of statistics, so that goes to show just how well they've done. And Enda Smith has just been sort of like the linchpin of this Roscommon team in the last 5 to 10 years. Like, he's been the captain, he's been the main man, and he's been exceptional again this year. 3-8 in total, 2-8 of which from play. And as I said before, part of a very, very good Roscommon team, the 4th best attack in the country, which averages about 116 per game. And look, he's not only scoring points from play, it's his leadership role in that team as well. He's setting up other players for scores, he's setting up goals as well. So he really is the main man in that Roscommon side, and he can play around midfield as well. He just covers so much yard and so much space. And again, for me, he would be another player that I would look at as a contender for Allianz National Football League Team or Player of the Year if that award was such a thing. And I think Enda Smith, with Roscommon, if Roscommon have a great year this year, which I think they will in the championship, to get to a quarter-final or a semi-final, could you be looking at Enda Smith in contention for an All-Star? I think he could be in the conversation. There's a few Roscommon players that definitely could be in the conversation. So yeah, Enda Smith gets in at number 10. And as I said, we will go through some honourable mentions at the end of the video as well, in particular in the forwards, obviously, because there is so many players that you could have chosen from. But in at number 11, Samuel Roy, and again another clear contender in many ways for National Football League Player of the Year, because he has been extraordinary for Louth, and he's really just sort of taken it upon himself to be the main man in this Louth team. And look, I do think Mickey Hart has got a lot from other players as well. I think Kieran Byrne looks good. I think it was a Tom or Liam Jackson who got the goal, one of the Jacksons anyway, who got that goal as well, who's been very good. And Louth look very, very good, very well oiled, very well controlled. You can see how they're set up. They look like a very well coached team. And, I think when you look at a player of the influence of Samuel Roy, who was very good, let's not forget, before Mickey Hart came in, but it looks like he's elevated his game even more and took it on to the next level. And 359 in total, averaging 8 points per game, which is extraordinary, really, for one player. Top scorer in the entirety of the National Football League as well. Excellent free kick taker as well from 45s, or whether he's taken, frees from inside the box, or, from close up to the goal, maybe 20 metres or so out. He's exceptional, and he's nailing probably the majority of the frees that he's taken as well. And I'd love to see a statistic as well in terms of accuracy from him. How many, what wides has he got? I'd say his accuracy must be around probably the 80 to 90% range, possibly even like high 70s. Just an extraordinary footballer. And, hopefully we get to see some of him in the championship. And, he's one of those players that, probably deserves an All-Star, but because he plays for Louth and maybe Louth won't do anything significant in the championship, I don't know, it's going to be hard for them going up against Carlow. Well, they'll beat Carlow, but going up against Kildare will be tough. But he is one of those players that I think he's been nominated for an All-Star before. I think he'll be nominated for one again, if not this year, next year. And if Louth ever do anything special in the championship, he's getting something, isn't he? Because he's been absolutely brilliant. And huge achievement for Louth this year. And Samuel Roy, very much the spearhead of that attack. And in at number 12, you have Ryan O'Donoghue. And I know I threw out a post over on Instagram. I threw this team up on Instagram just to sort of see some of your lads' opinions over there on this team. And I seen a couple of people obviously saying, look, Ryan O'Donoghue doesn't play wing forward. He obviously plays in the full forward line. Samuel Roy plays in the full forward line usually as well, although he has played in the 11 position before for Mickey Hart's side. In particular last year he played just played a little bit deeper in at 11. But look, there's so many brilliant forwards, so many brilliant attacking players that for me it justifies putting Ryan O'Donoghue in this position. And he has played in this position before. He's played at number 10 as well. He's played in a couple of different roles for this Mayo side, and he does often drop deep as well, so I think it's probably just about right to put him in at number 12. And also as well, like, who else would you put in that has played in this position? I know Paddy Clifford obviously got in the Allianz National Football League, the Sunday League Team of the Year. Not quite for me, in my opinion. I know he had a brilliant year, and he was exceptional in the league final, but for me, Ryan O'Donoghue gets in here because he's been so crucial for Mayo. And when you think of some of the injuries that Mayo have in terms of Killian O'Connor, Tommy Conroy, a lot of different players injured as well, they've needed big players to step up, and Ryan O'Donoghue has done exactly that, and he's been just exceptional for Mayo, not just this year but over the past year as well. So in total he scored 237 in total with 2-5 from play. But for me as well, it's not just his scoring, it's his influence around some of the other players as well. He's setting up scores, he's creating space, it's those driving runs as well. He wins a lot of frees, he's such a hard player to dispossess, brilliant ball carrier. So yeah, Ryan O'Donoghue gets in at number 12. We move into the full forward line, and in at number 13, it is David Clifford. And look, I don't think it can be any surprise that David Clifford gets in here, and it is no surprise he is my National Football League Player of the Year for 2022, because he's just so good, isn't he? And you look, I'm sure a lot of people have seen people praising him already, and you run out of superlatives to describe him, you run out of verbs, you just don't know really what more to say about him, to be perfectly honest. I mean, the numbers just speak for themselves. 528 in total and 522 from play. I mean, that is out of this world. 522 from play. I mean, we just said Ryan O'Donoghue scored 2-5 from play, and that's no disrespect to Ryan O'Donoghue. You know, he's been exceptional for Mayo, and he's been brilliant, and he sets up other scores around him and does so much. But David Clifford to score 521 from play, it's just like, it's incredible stuff. And you're seeing the comparisons in terms of like Ronaldo and Messi in soccer or football or whatever you want to call it, in terms of the numbers that those players generate year on year. And I think you're seeing David Clifford starting to do that in terms of the numbers he's generating in this sport, in Gaelic football, because he's scoring so much game on game. And it's not just the scores, you know, it's not like he's getting tap-ins or anything like that, or he's getting easy goals. You know, you've seen what he done to Padraig O'Hara, absolutely rinsed them inside and out. You know, against Dublin, he was all over them as well defensively. You know, you've seen the goal he scored against Armagh as well, albeit Ethan Rafferty slipped in goal. But, you know, he's just been exceptional. He really, really has. He's been absolutely brilliant. And, you know, he's one of those players as well, when he carries the ball, he doesn't slow down as he hits it, which is just very unnatural. And a lot of his talent is almost gifted. Like, you can tell he obviously works a lot on his game. I'm sure he works on conditioning, physicality, all the rest. But in terms of his technical ability, like, it's so natural. And I think that's what's, you know, puts him above so many other players in this country. And as I was saying before, look, this guy's probably got 10 more years, maybe 10 plus years playing in Gaelic football for the Kerry seniors if he wants to. He's definitely going to be at his prime for the next 6 to 7 years, and it's very likely that this guy ends up as a player that wins multiple All-Stars, multiple All-Irelands. And, you know, a lot of people saying he's the greatest of all time. I think he, you know, it's still early yet, you know, he still needs to go out there and do it. All-Irelands, All-Stars, all the rest. And I think it's something you can really say in 4 or 5 years, you know, because you can then look back and sort of compare him with what other players have won as well. So, look, David Clifford in at 13, absolutely no doubt about it. An exceptional footballer. In at number 14 is Rian O'Neill of Armagh, and we've seen Rian O'Neill very early on really show his dominance in the National Football League for Armagh. I mean, that goal he obviously scores against Dublin was absolutely brilliant. And yeah, look, we know the talent that Rian O'Neill is as well. I mean, he's an exceptional footballer, and finishing with 125 in total in 7 games. I think 1 or 2 of them he came off the bench as well. And look, he probably did slow down a little bit towards the end of the league. I think Armagh in general probably slowed down a little bit towards the end of the league. I think with the fact that, you know, they knew they weren't getting relegated, and I think getting into a league final was a bonus, let's be perfectly honest. So I think for Rian O'Neill, like, he's just such a talented footballer, brilliant on frees as well, setting up other players for scores, an exceptional footballer. And yeah, Rian O'Neill in a 14. And in a 15 is Jimmy Hyland of Kildare, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, I was very, very surprised that this guy was not in the Alliance League Sunday Team of the Year, or League Sunday Team of the Year, whatever you want to call it. Very, very surprised. It didn't even get a mention, which I thought was extraordinary. You know, only Ryan O'Donoghue and David Clifford have scored more than Jimmy Hyland this year in the National Football League. So a little bit unusual in my opinion that he didn't get a mention at all, Jimmy Hyland. Like, he finishes the year with 233 in total. He's been exceptional for Kildare. Big goals and big moments, big points and big moments as well. And when you look at Kildare getting 5 points on the board this year, and probably a little bit unlucky in some people's eyes to get relegated, I think Jimmy Hyland has been one of the big players for Kildare. He really has, and he's been one of those big players that's really stepped up for Kildare in the last couple of years, when you think of them obviously being promoted from Division 2 last year. And I mean, this has been a guy that has been knocking on the door for being a top class player for this Kildare team for quite a while. I think he was the under 20 footballer of the year back in 2018 when Kildare won the under 20 All Ireland. So, you know, he has been a player that really, really has been knocking on the door, and we've seen the talent that he is. Very strong player as well. Like, he just looks so bulked up and everything for his age, you'd have to say. Very, very good footballer, and you know, very surprised that, as I said before, that he hasn't got too much of a mention. in terms of Sunday League Team of the Year, but I think Jimmy Hoyland definitely gets in the team for me. Absolutely brilliant. I suppose we'll move on to some honourable mentions before we finish things up. And we mentioned Paddy Clifford in terms of forwards. I think Keith Byrne has been absolutely exceptional for Leitrim. Very unlucky that he doesn't get in here. Couple of reasons why I left him out. Look, I don't think it's all about scoring at the end of the day, and I think that's why Enda Smith gets in there, in my opinion. And also as well, I haven't seen him play, unfortunately, so it's very hard to sort of put a player in there when you haven't seen them play. If I seen Leitrim play, if I seen Keith Byrne play this year, I've obviously seen him play in previous years, you might look at it and think, oh, what a top class player he is, and maybe he gets in there. So a little bit unlucky there. Sean Quigley kind of in the same boat as well. Exceptional for Fermanagh, one of the top scorers in the league as well, in the entirety of the league, alongside who would you say, alongside Keith Byrne. So Sean Quigley, very, very good there as well. You're looking at some other players as well. Tony Brosnan, very, very good campaign for Kerry. Brilliant campaign from him. Gavin White, I've seen Gavin White being mentioned a couple of times over on my Instagram post, and look, I think he's only started 2 or 3 games this year, so I'm not quite so sure you can justify putting him in there. He was obviously brilliant in the final, and look, if he carries on the same form going into the championship, probably likely he picks up an all-star in that wing-back position, but not quite for me, just given the lack of game time. Paddy Woodgate was very good for Kildare, I felt. I thought he had a very, very good campaign, and definitely deserves getting into the team for me. I think Sean Bugler was good for Dublin. I think he was probably Dublin's best player. But again, you can't justify putting him in there ahead of any of the other players. I know some people were saying, Ryan O'Donoghue shouldn't be in there. He's not a wing forward or whatever. He doesn't play in the wing forward position. I mean, this team isn't going to take to the field tomorrow or anything like that. You know what I mean? And look, if you had this team available to you, any manager had this team available to you, I think they would put Ryan O'Donoghue in the wing forward position and put the other 3 forwards in the full inside, if that makes sense. So maybe Sean Bugler would have been a good option for wing forward, but again, I think Ryan O'Donoghue's just been too good to leave out. Is there anyone else there that I can't really think of off the top of my head? Paddy Lynch, very good for Cavan, I suppose. Gerald McKernan had a very good year there as well. Connor Sweeney, obviously exceptional for Tipperary. Josh Ryan, very good for Limerick this year as well. Jason Duffy was good for Armagh, albeit a lot of his position, or a lot of his scores and goals or whatever, and a lot of his performances were from coming off the bench. But I do think he had a very good year as well. Dean Rock did finish as one of the higher scorers, I think, in the league. I think he was just behind Rian O'Neill in terms of scores, which is probably a bit of a surprise to some people, considering I think Dean Rock was very good against Donegal, but other than that, I think he was relatively quiet throughout the entirety of the league. Trying to think of other players maybe there that could potentially get in there off the top of my head. Paddy McBrearty, very good for Donegal. I suppose Darren McCurry as well for Tyrone. He definitely got a mention. But I do think he was very quiet in a lot of his games in comparison to some of the other players. But again, it's one of those things. If Tyrone have a great year, Darren McCurry probably gets an all-star, in my opinion, as well. I think that probably just about does it in terms of honourable mentions. I mean, who else really could you be looking at there? I think that's probably it, isn't it? That's probably it. I mean, Conor Cox good for Roscommon, no doubt about it. I mean, Shane Walsh, of course, for Galway. I can't believe I forgot him. He's definitely an honourable mention. I think he wasn't injured for the last couple of games of the league, so probably just about why he hasn't quite got in there. Damien Comer, very good. I think Damien Comer finished with 4-8 and 3-8 from play, so that's actually a really, really good tally. So Damien Comer probably a little bit unlucky there as well. But look, this is my choice. This is my team of the year, obviously. Let me know yours in the comments down below. If you like this video, if you like this content, smash the like button. Subscribe if you're new. There will be some predictions videos coming out in the next couple of days for the various different All-Ireland championships that are, starting next weekend, which is absolutely incredible, really. So we'll be doing a hurling predictions, which will be out on Saturday, and the football predictions will be out on either Tuesday or Wednesday, give or take. Hoping to do a podcast on Monday to look back at the ladies' football in Camogie, but we'll obviously have to try and arrange a guest or something of that matter. Actually, any suggestions or anything from some of you lads in regards to who would be a good person to bring on to discuss some of the ladies' football happening this weekend and some of the camogie as well. Let me know in the comments down below, and we'll certainly go ahead and reach out to them and try and arrange that. So yeah, cheers to anyone who tuned in. Smash the like button. My name is Aaron. I'll see you in the next one.